Hey, welcome back, guys. I hope you took that small break and went and grabbed a big bag of popcorn to watch this next layout tour. But before that, I'd just like to remind everyone that we are running a door prize here. All you've got to do is put a post up in Facebook or Instagram with the hashtag of NMRAx, and you go into the draw for a $50 gift card or voucher over at Mini Prints. And Martin, I've just been literally on their website having a look, and I believe they've got quite a few things there that will be a benefit to you on your layout. And no Melbourne scene would not be set without some pigeons. So I think you need to jump on over there tomorrow morning and have a look.
And pigeons. We only need about 1,200 of them to be to fill up the layout. But yeah, pigeons. Okay, I will go and have a look tomorrow. And while we're in the community service announcement mode, we'll just remind everyone that we are live streaming on YouTube as well. So if you know someone that doesn't like to use Facebook and they'll use YouTube, send them a message and tell them to come and watch. So now we're actually streaming on Facebook and YouTube. So there you go, the wonders of the Steam Age.
Technology, it's great. So our next clinic is a regular, or he's a regular at the Amherst show. He's a modular N-scale layout. He now has retired and started to build his home layout. After years of covering sporting events to produce a layout tour for both layouts, sit down with your big bag of popcorn, enjoy some N-scale fun with Dwight. Over to you, if you want to get that video rolling, Martin.
Hello, my name is Dwight Sturtevant. Today we're going to take a look at my two N-scale layouts. First is the new Middletown and Stoneypoint modular layout. This layout was designed and built starting in 2016 to replace an earlier 4x6 layout that was too difficult to take to shows. This originally started with 3 main units. Several modules have been added since. The second layout we're going to look at will be the Palmer Model Railroad, and this is my fixed at home N-scale layout. This layout is a hybrid that is also DC and DCC, allowing for visitors to come with their rolling stock and not be limited to which power system the layout will work under. This is the town area of the new Middletown and Stoneypoint modular layout. This is one of the 3 original sections. This town section connects to the main yard section, and then the main yard section connects to the mountain. For the 2020 Amherst Model Rail Show, this new corner was added to expand out the layout and to provide more dramatic effect as trains traveling off of the main section comes through the yard, around the mountain, and then back into the main yard area. Traveling through the main yard area and out and around the town, and then back at the starting point of the yard. On the main center unit is a 6-track storage yard. This serves as the main yard for the layout and is connected to the east main. On the west main is a small 2-track siding, and this is for staging and swapping out passenger service. This 2-foot by 5-foot yard was originally part of a 4x6 layout. That layout proved to be too difficult to move to shows and was retired. This yard was added in 2019 for the Amherst Rail Show and is now a permanent part of the layout. There is a service track that is normally installed that allows trains to switch between the secondary yard and the main layout. The yards are both unique yards. The yard that was salvaged is called the Taylor Yard, for the Taylor Yard in Los Angeles, since I spent many years in Los Angeles. The other yard, the main yard for the layout, is called Cedar Hill, which is the famous yard that served multiple railroads just north of New Haven, Connecticut. A unique feature of this railroad is I do have working signal lights. The signal lights are primarily just for show, using as a track to sense the train position. As the train passes the signal, the light has turned red. Once the train clears the signal, the light on a timed interval will go from yellow back to green. So we currently have a red indication as the train has passed. We've gone to a yellow. And finally back to green. The layout is divided into 7 working block signals. The layout was originally wired with Atlas power switches. Unfortunately, the springs in the switches became unreliable and rocker switches were added. This layout was originally built to look as if it was a layout that a standard father or son or daughter would have had. This is completely a DC layout using 2 throttle packs. This is the cab A and cab B, which is to run the main layout. This is the second power pack for yard power. The yard gets power in 2 ways. The Atlas selector switch is still being used for this yard. In the A position, get power off the lead track into the yard from the main layout, or in the B position, the yard power supply. This way, there's separate yard operations, or a train can be brought into or out of the yard and onto the main line from the main control panel. This gives quite a bit of flexibility and allows for 2 operators to work the layout. Here we see the Union Pacific leaving the town area of the layout. And now going through the center or main part of the original layout. The train is now going through the new corner added in 2019. Going out and around the mountain. This is an original part of the layout. And now it's heading back towards the main part of the layout. Once more going through the new curve. And now back on the center section, the original main part of the layout. And now we're heading back into the town section. At the widest spot, the town is 3 feet by 5 feet in length. The overall module is 3 feet by 6. The layout is 16 feet by 7 feet, which is roughly around 54 square feet of floor space. The layout has close to 22,971 feet of track in scale. With the layout being 16 feet wide by 7 feet deep, there's an extremely large amount of detail and variety packed into the layout. And this is what has proved to make the layout a show favorite. I've been to shows in Mass, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey, and every time the smiles on the faces are all the reward that you need for when you pack up the layout, take it and set it up. Now that I have shown you the new Middletown and Stoneypoint modular layout, this is the home or fixed layout. And I call this the Palmer Model Railroad, as I now live in Palmer, Massachusetts. This layout is 22 feet across at its widest and 16 feet down each side. This has two main lines. Each main line has 16 power blocks. The layout can be operated in DC or DCC, depending on the rolling stock used. This layout was started in July of 2019, and currently with our nice stay-at-home period, a lot more work has been done. This is the staging yard. The staging yard is accessible from the main line in two locations, here by Valley Lumber, or the west side of the cut-through mountain. On the back of the center section is the passenger station and a few mainline storage tracks. One of the recent additions, this was done during the virtual convention held by the UK folks. I added this trolley line. This trolley line runs from the passenger station behind some of the local businesses, past the hospital, goes between the town and the main line, and ends up at the town's trolley station. This is how passengers get from the passenger station to the town using the trolley. Some of the kits have been purchased new and been built, like this hospital. Some of the buildings are saved, like these 5 houses from the earlier layout, yet to be positioned on the layout. And many of the town buildings are also saved from the earlier 4x6 layout. With the building of the table work, one of the obstacles was a water pipe. The trains go between the wall and the water pipe. And so as to hide the water pipe, a hill was built. Eventually, where the water pipe is, a cell tower will be built. Then moving to the left, another hill was built to fill in the corner. As you continue to the left, you enter the industrial section of the layout. Various different buildings from different manufacturers. To break things up, another pass-through hill was added. And then this tunnel leads into the oil tank area. Originally, the tracks in front of the retaining wall was the original path of the layout. And as you see here, the redirected tracks on the west end of the oil tank room. In the industrial area, we have a nice fire station. We have a paint factory, a grain elevator, a tool supply company. The most important building on the layout, the brewery. A small collection of trucks. These trucks will be used on the layout here at home, and some will be also used on the new Middletown and Stoneypoint show layout. I have a power generating station and worked on cutting down some telephone poles so that the wires lead from the power station. Everybody needs your packages on time, so we have UPS. The bus repair depot. the maintenance away shop. We have the engine servicing building. Between the tracks where you see the yellow paint is where the isolated blocks are. As I have mentioned before, this layout is set up for DC and DCC, and it's a traditional block system. There is a total of 8 interlockings, allowing for crossover between tracks. There's a coal yard. And here we see the control panel. The upper push buttons are for the switch turnouts, and the 2 rows of buttons below are for selecting either cab A or cab B. And then down in the center, cab A or cab B can be DC or DCC. One of the first things that I'm doing with this layout is I have card boxes for card cards. So when you're having rail operations, you can keep track of where the cars are and where the cars are going. This is the first time for me to have these. So here's just some more shots of the layout. And now I will take us over to the non-public area of the layout, the oil tank room. So here's the original curve of the tracks in the industrial area. And here is the new alignment for the east and west main heading into the west tunnel of the oil tank room. Here's the west tunnel oil tank room side. There's 2 short storage tracks and 1 long storage track. And this now has become the home storage track for my Ringling Brothers and Barnum Bailey Circus train. The train is 24 cars long. Each car is 85 feet in length. If I was to park this train in my normal yard, it would take up 3 full tracks of the storage yard. This additional section of the layout is 4 feet wide by 6.5 feet long and was created solely to add additional running time and length to the overall layout. And to the left of the concrete support post is the back side of the east tunnel we saw with the foliage. Here we find the Canadian Pacific running around the town tracks, heading behind the lumber yard and between the yard. Now we're going through the front section of the middle of the layout. This passes the main of 2 control stations. There's 1 main control station for the main layout. There's a second control station for the staging yard. And as before, this Canadian Pacific is going past 1 of 8 interlockings, allowing the trains to traverse the main lines. This is passing the engine servicing area and the sidings for some of the new industries. More sidings will be added as industries grow. Here we find the Canadian Pacific disappearing into oil tank room. A Department 56 mountain given to me by a neighbor. And here is the east portal of the oil tank tunnel. Shortly, the Canadian Pacific will reappear. And here we have the oil, now going back through another tunnel. Past the UPS. This is going to be a site of a future factory, staging the parking and the property line right now. And now we have the train going through the water tunnel. This is the tunnel to hide the water pipe. And now the train is going through the back section of the middle of the layout, past the newly installed backdrops. And now it's heading back into the town area where we first saw the layout. With the tracks and the oil tank room out of sight, and my being a television engineer, couldn't help but install CCTV cameras and this old analog video display to show parts of the layout that were outside of the normal view. This monitor is to aid in backing into the paint factory and a grain silo to make it easier to see when the last car is at the end of each siding. Here we are looking at the video screen of the west end of the oil tank room. This is to monitor the two sidings when backing train into the storage tracks, as these two tracks are not visible from the main layout room. As you see, the Canadian Pacific has entered the oil tank room and is going around the large loop area of track. As before, this was created just to add longer running time and to also provide a long siding for storage of the circus train. You will see in the upper left-hand corner of the screen the east end of the tunnel. The train can be barely made out. This is the second power station and control panel. The cab on the left handles the B position of all the rocker switches for independent yard operation. The rocker switches in the upper position are fed off the main control panel, either off of the A or the B cab of the main throttle pack. The right throttle knob on this control panel is what controls and runs the trolley line. Here we find the trolley at the passenger station. The trolley is now heading back to town to return its passengers to their homes. Going behind one of the two fire stations on the layout, the dentist office, the trolley office, the men's clothing store, going past the hospital, a little motel, the freight house, the Valley Lumber Company, and ending up at the trolley station in the town center. In this shot, we are seeing the Canadian Pacific bypassing the main line and going through the yard and the rock cut. This is one of the two ways to enter the yard. And as we follow the tail end of the train, it has exited the rock cut and back on the main line tracks. These are shelves I've set up to store all the supplies to support both layouts, the new Middletown and Stoneypoint, and the home layout the Palmer Model Railroad. Supplies will be packed into storage boxes called pelican cases when traveling to shows, as there are always landscaping and scenery repairs that are needed. As a line from the movie Animal House, the new Oldsmobiles are in early this year. This is the little car dealership. This is another very old kit that was saved from an earlier layout, fixed up and repurposed for this layout. In the past, going to train shows, I've had to rent U-Hauls or other rental vehicles to transport the layout. This trailer is now called LTV1, or Layout Transport Vehicle 1. This is a 6 foot by 11 foot utility trailer, has hinged rear and hinged side door. Here we are looking in the curbside side door of the new transport utility vehicle. The shelves for holding the different modules of the layout. The bungee cords and all the eyelets are for securing and anchoring the table legs. The table legs will travel in this open area between the wall and the shelves for the modules. In the nose of the trailer, the black pelican cases will store all the black drape, power supplies, extension cords, engines, and other things to set up and maintain the layout. And of course, when you set up the layout of the show, you got to vacuum it off. With N scale, the tiniest little debris can damage an engine. The rest of the nose storage will be for all the cars and rolling stock. These are traveled in car cases, 5 cases to a bag, and typically 5 bags are taken to a show. The top shelf will support the mountain unit and the town fill-in section, as these are the tallest of all the modules. This will support the town, which is one of the 2 large original layout pieces, and then the next shelf down will support the center or main yard section. The added yard and other smaller pieces will live down here in the lower compartment. Looking towards the nose of the trailer, you will see on the left, the edge of the shelves is where the legs will be connected for transport. With having this trailer, much more elbow room, not as big a concern to make everything fit, will make going to shows easier and more enjoyable, since packing is no longer going to be a chore with the layout transport vehicle.
Okay, so we should be back. I should have my mic turned on. Everyone should be able to hear me. Well, that was interesting, Dwight. I'll hand the stage over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Martin. Basically, I've had an interest in trains since growing up playing with my dad's Lionels that I worked with my grandfather. I got back into the hobby in the late 2000s. The show layout, which is the first part, is basically the third reincarnation of a layout. There was originally a 3x6 that morphed into a 4x6 that I tried to build for shows and was just too difficult to move around, and that's why I went modular. It's not to any standard, it's just basically built to give the maximum layout for the space. And over the last couple of years, I've added a little section here, a little section there, just keep expanding it out a little bit.
Cool. So,
and then
You've been to Amherst, obviously, by those videos and
Yes,
talking with you.
Amherst. I've been to Amherst for 3 years. I was first year was the 50th anniversary.
Cool.
Do many shows throughout the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut area. Up until June, I lived just outside New York City, so it was easy to do the New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania area.
Okay, so how many shows do you go to a year? Both Brad and I are in clubs that attend quite a few shows, and I think we do about 14 or 15 a year.
Before before the worldwide lockdown, I did on average about 6 or 8 shows a year.
Okay. Yeah, we only had notice the other day our last 2 shows for the year have been cancelled, and the next train show in Queensland is going to be in Bundaberg in March next year. So
With the first layout with my tour, that is also a sole proprietor layout, and that's one of the only sole proprietor layouts that's at Amherst. Most of everything that's there is either N scale, HO, ON3, G scale, and they're all clubs. So that's a pretty unique for me to be one of the only single person layouts at the show.
yes, yeah, well, neither Brad nor I have had the experience of going to Amherst, but every year when it's on, we see all the videos that come up in YouTube, and I just find it mesmerising that you can get around a show that big in 2 days.
You can't get around a show that big in 2 days. You need 6.
6 days, yes. It's a shame it's only open for 2, isn't it? That's all.
It'd be nice if they had it open Friday evening and Saturday, Sunday.
So, Brad, how does the chat look? Are we?
Look, there's lots of comments in there, all great comments about the layout and whatnot. Pat did ask, on your home layout, what turnout control do you use?
Both layouts are 100% Atlas Code 80. I basically stayed to what any average family would have right out of the box.
Okay, so are they manually operated, or do they have...
On the home layout, they are all electrically operated except for 1 or 2 at a few of the sidings. The show layout is 100% electrically operated.
Okay. Another question there in the chat was, what do you use for your line markings on your roads?
I use the Bushy foil foam roadway from Germany. It lays down very nice. You can curve it without too much trouble. It's also what I use for my parking lots and side street parking.
Okay. Cool.
Let me quickly dig through here. I'll have one. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about your trailer for transport? That's something that interests me, based on that I'm about 3 or 4 hours away.
What I used to do is use U-Haul, either vans or trailers. And since I couldn't have anything permanent, I used to use ratchet straps to create a sling and lay foam insulation sheets on the ratchet straps. Unfortunately, there was a lot of wasted space between the levels. Recently, I've had the opportunity to be able to afford a trailer, and the different heights are now more uniform. So there's not going to be like big expanses of space between the levels. There's also room now to store the legs between the shelves and the curbside of the unit. It was always a challenge to get everything to fit in a rental vehicle. And that will also make doing shows even easier. So, doing a one-day show, it's not going to be as much of a chore loading and unloading. And that's always been the problem, is the aggravation and the amount of work it took to do a one-day show.
Yeah, okay. So while we're on the show side of things, once we all get out of this bit of crazy time we're in, what's your next planned show to go to?
I am supposed to be part of the Hub Group's Columbus Day weekend convention. I will be a drive-in and drive-out layout on display. People coming from New York, Vermont, Connecticut, and further west coming to New England will be able to come and visit the layout on their way in or out of the convention. Both layouts will be set up for that weekend. The show layout, the new Middletown and Stoneypoint layout, the Monday before Thanksgiving will be set up in central Massachusetts at the Worcester Museum of Art and will be on display through January 10th. It'll be the longest time the layout's been set up away from home and in a show setting. So it's almost 7 weeks that will be on display.
Nice, interesting. I see we're up to around that 160 total viewers, Martin. So how's the chat over in YouTube looking?
The YouTube chat's pretty quiet here. I see Ron Marsh had dropped in there, but there's one thing. It's more of a comment than a question, but I model N-scale American passenger outline, and one of the best things about N-scale is the size of the trains that you can run. So, what would be the average size consist that you would run on your layout?
On the show layout, I typically can't run more than about 24 cars, box cars. I can't run anything more than about 14 passenger cars at the 85-foot length passenger cars. With the home layout behind me, I'm able to run my circus train. That runs at about 26 85-foot long cars. But it also, with that many cars, needs multiple engines. And there's not the curves to support that on the traveling layout.
Yep. I noticed in the video as well the buildings that you had around the place. The other thing with N-scale as well is you can build some, high-rise buildings, and they don't take over the whole room because of their size. Could you give us a bit of an outline on some of the buildings and some of the kits that you've got there? And
a lot of the kits are the older Pola kits from the 80s. Some of them are the DPM kits from the last few years. In the second half, for the home layout, you saw the Leech Hospital. That's an old Concord kit. I basically use a lot of different kits. Some I've had and repurposed. Some I found on eBay. Some I picked up at train shows. I'm not really into one manufacturer or the other. One of the modelers in the NMRA helped me build the shipyard brewing kit because that was the first wood kit, and realized it was beyond my skills. And the gentleman from Long Island built that for me. I was very grateful. So, I have all kinds of different models. It's whatever looks nice. It's not trying to model a specific era or city or town. Because from New England, you go from colonial to the industrial to modern. So you look at the cities around here, you got all various buildings and building types.
Yes, yeah. That's one of the places I've yet to venture over to is the East Coast, and I'm looking forward to getting over there because there's a bit more history over there than the West Coast, I guess. But
and as you saw in the first half, the show layout, there's a lot of detail. There's street lights, there's lights in the cars. And the thing that impresses people the most, I use as a track. I did the cross the track method for sensing the train just because it was easier. But, with the working signal lights, that really draws people's attention. It doesn't do anything more than it's for show.
yes.
But still, when you're in a show setting and people see stuff actually working and changing, it really intrigues people's interest.
Yes, well, I tend to do that with our club's layout. The modules that I built, they've got an animated road scene and an excavator that moves and a few bits and pieces. But then again, I noticed your backdrops there. Can you give us a bit of a story on your backdrops?
These backdrops here were from a gentleman from Pennsylvania who makes backdrops. They were purchased through eBay. So basically, I just went the easy way, bought them, cut them to size, and so over here, it's shorter because there's only it's a reach over to get to that part of the layout. The area behind me is actually to a hard wall, so that's the full height of the backdrop.
Okay.
So that's the reason why this side's shorter. It's a reach over to access. And in the industrial area, which you saw in the second half of the video, there's actually 2 lift out sections so that you can actually get to and maintain and clean those parts of the layout.
Okay. I've got a couple of questions over here in Facebook. John says, great layout. Love the trolley. Does it auto reverse?
Thank you. The trolley is basically on its own throttle of a 2-pack throttle pack. So that the trolley basically is manually operated, and it basically will go either direction on the B side of a throttle pack. So the home layout actually has 3 throttle packs. The main throttle pack is cab A and cab B. On the main control panel, there's a rocker switch to go between A and B to feed the yard, and then the yard's either the main control panel in the upper position or local control in the B position. The layout also can completely be flipped over also from DC to DCC with a changeover switch. So the layout can either be DC or DCC. Most of the stuff I have is from the 70s and 80s, older engines, not worth the aggravation of converting them. But if you were to come to visit and wanted to run on a main line or run from a yard through an interlocking, we can make it DCC or DC. And that was the whole purpose behind the home layout, is anybody, any flavor, any format can run.
Okay, interesting. Another question over here. David asks, for your show layout, how long does it take to set up, and do you have any help setting it up?
The home layout basically takes under 90 minutes to set up. So if I pull up at a location, the 3 main parts of the layout sit on cradles. When the legs are unfolded, the layout rests on those, and then the interconnecting pieces will go between those. So get the layout on the legs, the fill-in track gets put in, it gets a quick test, dress skirt goes on, then the track gets a full cleaning, 90 minutes. And I do it usually by myself. It's not that hard because everything just fits together nicely. Just like N-track or T-track, I've got the layout to the point now where all the little pieces fit in a storage box. You open up the tackle box and you just start in one spot and work your way around in a circle.
Okay, interesting. Now, just out of curiosity here, the pull-down procedure, is it much the same time, or due to the fact you've been at a show all weekend, you're keen to get home? Is it quicker?
When a show ends, the first thing I will do is pull off the dress skirt, fold that, because you're usually waiting for access to get out of the building. So do the dress skirt first, then I do rolling stock, and then I will pull out the short sections of track between the units, and then disconnect the short sections between the larger sections, and then pull the larger sections off of the legs. So probably half an hour, 40 minutes to break down and pack up. And obviously now with the trailer that I've set up, it's not going to be, a challenge to get everything to fit. Everything's going to have a proper shelf and a proper place. So that will greatly probably increase the time on both ends.
Yeah, interesting. Any questions over there on YouTube, Martin?
Just one requiring an inquiring mind about track cleaning. What are your thoughts on track cleaning? And when you're at a show, do you run any track cleaning vehicles in your consist to keep the exhibition layout running? Because I know from experience, usually when you get about 10 feet of people in front of you all looking at the layout, that's when it decides to have dirty track and everything decide to stop.
When I'm with the show layout and the home layout, I worked in television industry, so I have the lint-free and static-free cloths that used to be used to clean videotape heads. Talking history now, videotape heads. Yep. Just use rubbing alcohol. Prior to the show opening, I will give the tracks a good cleaning, I will give all the engines a cleaning prior to the show opening. I will rotate the trains and consists throughout the show so that I have a chance to pull an engine and cars off the track and run other cars so that they don't get too much buildup. Typically on a show that opens at 9 and goes until 4, the track will get cleaned at least once during the show. Prior to a big show like the Amherst show or the Worcester Art Museum show, anything that will be used will be prepped. I will physically remove all the axles from the cars, soak them in alcohol, wipe them down, reassemble the axles into the cars. I have found that the extra effort you do in maintenance pays off in the long run.
Exactly. We always have this problem of at shows. We'll always have one club member that comes along who pulls something out. It says, "Oh, I haven't run this in 15 years. I thought I'd bring it along today." And next minute, the whole layout comes to a grinding halt.
After the first loop, after the first loop, you got a layer of dirt.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Many of my cars are older cars, so I still use the Rapido couplers. I do have some knuckle cars and some knuckle engines. But basically, I have in the last year between Atlas, Intermountain, and another vendor, I have removed all the old, as we would call it, pizza cutter wheels and gone to the black and brass low profile wheels. So that has improved also the reliability of the way the cars run and also lessened the amount of cleaning that's needed going to one type of wheel set. So I don't have a mix of, the black and brass or the old pizza cutter wheels or the plastic.
Okay. And you don't use any, obviously you said using the lint brush wipes to clean the track. I guess you don't use any abrasive track rubbers or
I do. If the show layout hasn't been run in a while and it's say been just sitting, I will probably run a Bright Boy over it first and then wipe it down with the lint-free cloth and alcohol, because sometimes you'll get the stubborn, oxidation where, you'll need a little bit more gusto of a Bright Boy. But I don't use automatic transmission fluid or any of that other stuff. Just, occasionally a Bright Boy and just rubbing alcohol.
Okay. You got any other questions over there, Brad? Or
Yeah, David Wolf asked, do you have any problems with expansion going from your home into the trailer and then into the show hall?
No, because typically when I go like to a show in the wintertime, the layout will be packed up the day before. So obviously it will be in a cold trailer overnight or while in transport or a U-Haul, which I used in the past. When I get to a show, the first thing I do is put all the pieces either on their legs or the smaller pieces on a table and let them sit for an hour and come up to ambient temperature. I'm in no, because like with a multiple day show, you've usually got a setup day. So the most important thing is get into the hall, put the stuff either on card tables or banquet tables, let it warm up to room temperature, put the tables together, put the pieces together. And when I actually connect the modules together, I don't do the wing nuts tight until I've done at least a test run, and then I'll cinch things up. So it gives everything a chance to warm up to, the ambient temperature.
Okay. Dan asks, do you do the Greenberg show? And do you do any shows further south in NJ?
I don't do the Greenberg shows, but I have done shows in New Jersey. The show layout before some of the expansions was the first private layout to be on display at Steamtown, which is a National Historic Site run by the Park Service. So that was a very unique opportunity. Obviously, once we get our marching orders again and we can go back, the shows, and now having some more flexibility, I plan to, do more shows if they're more than one-day shows. So there's a couple shows in the South, like the Maryland and Carolinas I'm looking at.
Okay, nice, cool. Any questions over there on YouTube, or because that's about it here on Facebook?
No, I've only got one question, which really isn't a Dwight, and it's from a Mr. Wilson. He was inquiring on how the weather is in Australia today, and I'll tell him at 1 o'clock in the morning it is quite chilly. But I believe he comes from the northern parts of Canada, so his slightly chilly and our slightly chilly, Brad, are going to be two very different things, I think.
Yeah, I'm actually quite surprised. I did see before that you are wearing jeans, but there is a bead of sweat on your forehead, so I think it's still quite hot down here in your
Yeah,
term.
yeah, I would say it's hot. Yeah.
Okay, well,
So
if there's no more questions, Dwight, I like to thank you for the layout tour. It's great seeing some stuff over there and a show layout especially. Thanks for the effort.
I thank you all for putting this together. It's been fun the last few weeks watching all these different clinics and all these other tours. It's really fun to watch how different people do things. I mean, I had some issues with track on the show layout, and because of people in the NMRA, there's a couple key people that know who I'm talking to, basically got me off a dead center to pull up and redo some of the track work because it was originally built all with sectional track, and great portions of it now have been redone with flex.
good, cool. Well, like Brad said, it's great to have you on. We're going to take a little break now and recoup and refill the coffee mug, and we'll get more popcorn depending on which part of the day you're in. And we'll be back with our next presenter. So, Dwight, thank you very much.